Local councils appointed air raid wardens when the war broke out. Wardens learnt from resources such as this anti-gas training manual and training exercises. After one training exercise in 1940, it was reported that the wardens were very conscious of their own shortcomings, and more first aid training was recommended. In 1942, the Baedeker raid report praised the first aid treatment rendered to casualties by wardens, saying it deserves commendation. Training exercises were not always popular, as one letter from a head warden demonstrates. Here, Mr. Richardson stated his frustrations at the lack of information and said, "I've repeatedly suggested to you that more time should be allowed for the organisers of the warden service to do their job properly. I must warn you that I cannot hold myself responsible for any breakdown which may occur." One main responsibility of wardens was ensuring that blackout regulations were followed. They also reported bombing incidents and carried out rescue work. The wardens worked with first aid parties, soldiers, police and volunteer members of the public to rescue people from rubble and destroyed houses after an air raid. 32-year-old George Shearing was one warden who gave a detailed report of rescue work carried out during and after the severe enemy attacks on the 29th of April 1942. Officer Shearing's work was incredibly dangerous. He had to dodge blazing, fractured gas mains and worked in buildings that were hot from fire and liable to collapse at any moment. Even his journey to report to the Scarcroft ARP depot was difficult. Officer Shearing reported that heavy high explosives had been dropping continuously throughout his entire journey. By the time he arrived at the depot, a bomb exploded so close that the blast wrenched the door out of his grasp. At the depot, Officer Shearing was met by a soldier in a very hysterical state, who informed him of people trapped under rubble in Unthorpe Road. Here, Shearing was met with 4 demolished houses and a large crater, the result of a large high-explosive bomb. A number of people were saved by Anderson shelters, although there was sadly one fatality. Trying to find missing people could become very confusing. For instance, Officer Shearing assumed the Backhouse family of 48 Bootham were trapped under rubble after the house was completely destroyed by a direct hit from a high-explosive bomb. However, after making inquiries, he found they had simply walked across the road after scrambling out of their own house to stay with a friend. Officer Shearing's report reveals he went to great lengths to identify who was missing, included interviewing hospital and mortuary staff and neighbours. At one incident in Tranbury Croft, an elderly woman who was rescued from a demolished house and left on a stretcher while waiting for an ambulance. To the shock of the rescue leader, the woman got up and attempted to walk home. Officer Shearing stated she had to be gently but firmly restrained, as she was obviously suffering from extreme shock. Officer Shearing was one of the 1,104 wardens that turned out and gave reports on incidents on the 29th of April 1942. Their work was essential to the war effort.